Hi everyone, this is Sam Karashi. I used to be a psychiatric resident in an addiction hospital. Video that I didn't anticipate to record, but I needed to record it because I was obsessed with the movie Joker. I watched it 3 times, I took 52 pages of notes, I recorded 90 minutes of audio content to flesh out the notes. There's so much I want to talk about. There's so much I want to share about that movie. The fact that he needed to go into the fridge makes me think of how inflamed he is, how much he was burning inside, the fire within. And that indicates the anger and the rage and the frustration that comes with everything he's seeing in his world, everything he's seeing around him, the way people are treating each other, the way people are treating him. And it was natural for him to want to cool down from that inflammation, that fire. The people that have anger issues have that. There's this fire, this burning sensation. So that's the first thing. The second is the isolation. He needed to isolate himself. And it's interesting that he chose the fridge because it's an unusual place to isolate yourself. People would not look for a human there. So one of the things that I am fascinated by is why did he even want to isolate himself? 3 things come to mind. The first is he wanted to detach from the overwhelm, the overstimulation of everything that's happening around him, visual, auditory. We live in a world right now where there's so much noise, there's so much visual stimulation, and it's very, very stressful. And given his condition, that just amplifies the whole thing. So he needed to isolate himself from that. That's one possibility, or one possible one in addition to the other 2. The second, I would say, would be related to emotions. He's been abused his entire life. And that emotional trauma that keeps on happening, he just needed to detach himself from that. He needed to isolate himself from that because it was just so much. It was too unbearable for him to keep doing it. So he just needed a break from all the abuse that he's been having his entire life and all the abuse that he knows he will continue to have after that. He just wanted a break. One more thing to add related to mental illness as a whole is mental illness, in a nutshell, is an adaptation to overstimulation, to pressures that cannot be controlled. Mental illness occurs because of an adaptation to something, and a lot of people don't look at the adaptation. They just look at the genetic predisposition. The truth is, for the genetic predisposition to kick in, you have a lot of other factors, including daily pressures, life pressures, stresses. Just because you have the genetic predisposition to something, to an illness, mental illness or physical illness, doesn't mean you're going to get it. There's a set of criteria, a set of things that need to happen, a set of factors that need to exist in order for the activation to take place, for the gene expression to kick off the cascade leading to that. And in a way, mental illness is an adaptation to stresses that cannot be controlled or contained. It's like a balloon inside people that keeps inflating, and then there's a moment where it just pops. And when that happens, suddenly something happens as an adaptation. Psychosis is an adaptation. Depression is an adaptation. It's a way to look at the world in a way to protect you, even though it's not actually protecting you, but it creates the illusion. If you have a grandiose delusion that you're an important human being, it's to make you feel safe. Safety is at the heart of everything we need. And if we don't feel safe, it's hard to be happy. Which brings me to the final point. There's a line close to the end of the movie where he was sitting next to his mom in the hospital, and he looked at her and he said, "I haven't been happy 1 minute of my entire life." And what's interesting about that is, the first thought that I had when I watched it was, how can someone be happy with so much pressure, so much stress, so much suppressed emotion within them? Because if you think about it, emotions in general, if you want to be happy, you need to have the space for happiness. You need to have the space for joy. You need to have the space for all these positive emotions. But if the room in your mind is filled with a lot of negative emotions from something that keeps coming, or from emotions that you've never released in your life, you kept on suppressing it, there's no way for you to be happy. because there's no room for it.
The first film bringing to the fore both the multitude of traumas that life can have inflicted to me. I have so many similarities with the character that I'm almost afraid of it. I know that part of my capsizing emotions come directly from all of this. Talks about the same abuse and trauma in details I had, the same thing about therapy, thing about being beat up, not as a clown but as a mascot, fireman dog, being bullied and beaten up in high school, the way people judged me, society treated me, how I got treated when I snapped and punched my abusers. Here in Montreal, I am in poor health and very poor. For therapy there is too long a waiting list in the free services and they cut the services. Use the characters as the therapy I do not have. When emotions block or paralyze you, when you've kept strong and firm in life's hardest situations, and suddenly you can't cope any longer and you break. That's when you get help processing these experiences and emotions through catharsis and its subsequent analysis. Catharsis can take place during the course of therapy, but it can also occur during other moments as well. What I do is a lot like what they do in therapy with psychodrama. Psychodrama, this type of therapy involves acting out difficult events from the past. By doing so, people are sometimes able to reassess and let go of the pain from these events. Catharsis psychology can be extremely helpful. The body remembers the trauma that the mind does not. Psychodrama provides a space for the body to speak.
The most important gift we can ever give ourselves is releasing the emotional impact of the traumatic experiences we've had. To release emotions on a regular basis, to let it out. And there's so many ways of doing it, and that could be a topic for another day. It doesn't mean that we can't release it right now. So the first step to feeling happy is to create the space for happiness, the space for joy, by releasing the emotional impact of the traumatic experiences you've had.
You understand more now what I do. I'm creating a space for myself, for joy.